A1.1 Water SL and HL. At most temperatures on Earth, water is in a liquid state, and that's going to be really important because almost all of the metabolic reactions that happen in our cells take place with molecules that are dissolved in solution. So amongst these water molecules, and that's a very important quality of water to keep an eye on, now when we are drawing a water molecule, we really want to draw it in this form here, and I can even label this is an oxygen and two hydrogens, that how we get H2O. But it's useful to look at more of a chemistry diagram, if you will. So the oxygen and the hydrogen are bound together through a covalent bond. But there is an unequal sharing of electrons, and those electrons are pulled a little closer to the oxygen than to the hydrogen, and that results in partial charge. So this is how we would write those partial charges. Oxygen is going to have a partially negative charge, and hydrogen ends are going to have a partially positive charge. So this is the way that I would want to draw a single water molecule. Now notice that I've chosen to draw that covalent bond with a solid line. That's the proper notation that consists of a bond within water molecule. Between two separate water molecules, we are going to have a special type of bond called a hydrogen bond, and we use a dashed or dotted line for hydrogen bond. Hydrogen bond is an attraction between the partially negative end of one molecule and a partially positive end of a different molecule. That is very important here if I have to draw multiple water molecules. I want you to be able to draw that hydrogen bond that is going to exist between them, and that hydrogen bond gives water some very special properties. This includes cohesion. So cohesion is an attraction between two molecules that are the same. So water being attracted or sticking to the other water molecules. That is a result of this hydrogen bonding that we are seeing here between these water molecules. So cohesion water sticks to other water molecules. That's very important for a few reasons. One of them being what we call transpiration, and this is a process that happens in the xylem of plants. The xylem is a tube that goes through a plant, and it's the way in which water and other dissolved minerals is going to travel up through the plant. It really starts with evaporation from the stomata. We'll learn more about that in another topic, but these stomata are little openings in the plant leaf. When water evaporates from that plant, it's also going to pull other water molecules up through the xylem due to cohesion. So if you can imagine a water molecule up, here pulling another molecule up with it, that's going to create this tension, this pulling force, and that's going to pull water all the way up through the xylem of the plant as long as we have a continuous water supply. As long as one water molecule is in contact with the other molecule right beneath it, it's going to be able to create the tension force and pull the water up through the xylem of the plant, all due to cohesion. Not only cohesion is important for the insides of some organisms, but it's important in creating habitat space for others. Here we can see this insect living on the top of the water. It's not floating in the water like you and I might float in a swimming pool. It's not getting wet. It's not even breaking the surface of the water. What that looks like is something like this, where the water molecule actually bent when coming in contact. That's all due to this force of cohesion. These water molecules are hanging on to each other so tightly that the hydrogen bond is so strong that water doesn't even break, and now this organism can utilize the surface of water as a habitat space. Now you may have noticed when you put water in a tube like a graduate cylinder, it doesn't form a line straight across, but rather this like U-shape a bit. This we call meniscus, and this is all due to the something called capillary action. Capillary reaction is a result of adhesion. Adhesion is the attraction between water molecules and a solid surface. In this case, an attraction between the water molecules and the side of the tube, and what that's doing is pulling the water up. That's also very important in transpiration for plants. So not only is cohesion for water pulling important, also adhesion water sticking to the sides of this xylem. That is super important because that helps pull water up against the force of gravity, maintaining the moisture content in plants and helping plants move water from the soil up through their xylem. Another important quality of water is its ability to act as a solvent. Here, a solute is what is being dissolved. A solvent is usually a liquid acting as whatever we are dissolving something into. The solution is the resulting homogeneous mixture of these two now. Some things make better solvent than others. Water is not the universal solvent, but it's a very good solvent. But it cannot dissolve everything. It can only dissolve things that are hydrophilic. Hydro meaning water and philic meaning love. These are water loving things. These are going to be either polar molecules like glucose or ions. Things that have a charge, so water is polar, it loves other things that are also polar or have a charge. That in contrast to being hydrophobic. Hydro meaning water, phobic meaning hating. These are water hating substances. So these are going to be non-polar things. So things like lipids or things like an oxygen molecule that have very low solubility in water will not dissolve in water. Now metabolism of all those reactions that happens in our cells requires things to be in solution. The fact that water is able to dissolve so many types of things makes it a really good medium for life, and again, this is all because water is polar. What we want to do is to start associating the property being a good solvent with the property of water, which is water is polar. Then we can start to see the connection between what physical properties water has and how that's helpful to living things. Because water is such a good solvent that makes it an ideal transport medium in both plants and in animals. In plant, we are going to have two tubes. We talked a little bit about the xylem. So the xylem is going to carry water and dissolved minerals from the soil. The phloem is going to carry things like sucrose or other carbohydrates, but they have to be in solution also. So when we say in solution, they have to be dissolved in water. Water is a very good medium for dissolving things and getting them to flow through the different parts of the plant. Same thing happens with animals. We have a blood transport system, and water makes up the primary component of what we call our blood plasma. Our blood plasma is the liquid part of our blood, and it is primarily made up of water. That means it's going to be a very good solvent for things like ions, glucose, amino acids, things that are hydrophilic. And things like oxygen or things like fats or cholesterol have to be carried by things like cells or proteins because they are not very soluble in water. We'll replace that terminology here. Things that are hydrophilic are soluble, and we are going to find them in the blood plasma. Things that are not soluble, we are going to find them attached to things like proteins or cell components so that they can be transported by the blood plasma. Another important physical property of water is buoyancy. Gravity or gravitational force is going to be exerted downward. It is buoyancy that is the force moving in the upward direction. A force exerting upwards on an object by the water, and so it results is in the right balance. This leads to objects or organisms being able to float. So less dense objects are, going to be able to float on the water. The buoyancy of water is greater than the force of gravity exerted on the water, and so those will float. Denser objects will sink. Most aquatic organisms are going to have about the same density of water, and they don't want to be really stuck at the bottom or always really up at the top, but some organisms can actually adjust their buoyancy. For example, this is what is called a swim bladder in a fish, and this fish can fill this swim bladder up with air. When it does that, it becomes less dense and it starts to float. If it deflates its swim bladder, it becomes more dense and starts to sink in the water, so adjusting its own density to either rise or fall in water, all due to water buoyancy. Now let's talk about viscosity or water resistance to flow. Think about a fish swimming through the water. We need some resistance from the water when the fin is moving in order for that fin to help the fish propel itself forward. There are also some implications here for water being used as a transport medium. The more solutes that are dissolved in the water, the higher the viscosity. There are limits to how much we can dissolve into things like blood before it becomes very resistant to flow. The next physical property that deserves our attention is what is called thermal conductivity. Water is a very good conductor of heat, so heat can transfer easily through water. That can be good or that can be bad. It just depends on the scenario. Sometimes it's great if there is a lot of metabolic activity happening in our cells. Some of that blood plasma, that watery based solution that we talked about just a bit ago, can pick up some of that water and then transport that heat maybe to the surface of our skin. But having that heat energy enter that water very easily and then be transported in that way can be great. It can also have some dire consequences. If I'm falling into an icy pond or very cold water, that water again is a good thermal conductor. It can take the heat from my body, and that heat will then be transferred into the water. So, in that case, it can be bad. So, when we say the consequences for animals in aquatic habitats, sometimes that's great and sometimes that's not. So, we just need to consider that water is a very good thermal conductor, and organisms will have to have adaptations to either take advantage of that or to prevent losing too much body heat into the water. Although water is a good thermal conductor, it doesn't actually change temperature very easily. So water has what's called a high specific heat capacity. That means that it can actually absorb a lot of heat energy without a drastic change in energy, so it has a high specific heat capacity. It doesn't change temperature as easily as other things like alcohol or methane or something like that. This is great if you are an aquatic organism. So it has what is called a moderating effect. I would definitely put that in my memory bank. A moderating effect means that you can have lots of temperature variation in the air. It can go from being warm sunny day to a nice chilly night. The temperature of water won't actually change that much. So it's moderating, it's keeping that temperature range for that body of water in a relative narrow range. So that's great for aquatic organisms that live there. It can also be great for the maintenance of body temperature. Like we just talked about, your cells can produce a lot of heat with different metabolic reactions. So that heat energy can enter the watery parts of your cells, the cytoplasm or even the water-based fluid in the plasma in your blood, and that won't change temperature very much again. You see some organisms that live in really hot areas like this African elephant. The reason that he has really big ears is to be able to expose those ears and the blood that is inside them to the outside air. So, water is a good thermal conductor. It can exchange heat with the environment, but it's actually water by itself. So, the blood plasma won't change temperature drastically. This ringed seal lives mostly in the water, and water is a very good biome, so that's great. The seal can float and it doesn't have to expend a lot of energy to do that. But water is very viscous, so in order to move through it, it does have to expend energy. That way, water is also a very good thermal conductor. So, what you are going to see here on seal is a large amount of blubber or fat that helps prevent some of the body heat from inside of the seal being transmitted to the water. There are so many different adaptations for different environments. This is Arctic loon and it's evolved to live in the air. Air is less buoyant than water, so that loon has to expend a lot of energy in order to stay in the air. But air is less viscous than water, so it doesn't take as much energy to move through that air. Air is also not a great of thermal conductor, so we are going to find less things like blubber on that bird, but great examples of the ways in which organisms, and especially animals living in aquatic environment, have different adaptations to deal with the pros and cons of these physical properties of the water. As we wrap up, remember that understanding water unique properties like cohesion, adhesion, thermal capacity, and solvent abilities helps explain countless biological processes from nutrient transport to temperature regulation. Keep connecting these concepts to real life examples in your studies and appreciate how something as simple as water underpins the complexity of life itself. Well done today. I look forward to seeing you next time as we continue our IBDP biology journey together.